In a previous video I made, I talked about the emotions of lines, kind of like the quality they may bring to the viewer. Like, well, I talked about shapes as well. I kind of compared and contrasted shapes. Like, pretty much shapes are more like these completed lines in which, they form something, or it could be like a bean or something like that. Um, And the thing I was talking about is how they provide different levels of comfort, or how they may evoke all of the emotions that humans experience. But the other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about is how we process lines, or how I think we process lines. When I was in school, uh, one thing I learned a lot about user interface design. And surprise, surprise, I think it did pull through with a few of my applications. Maybe I have a bit of a bias in which I've done it myself, and I feel like maybe it's just easy to me, but not to others. But I feel like with a lot of them, I really tried to apply the rules of good human interface design, and basically don't put stress on people, don't make people remember stuff, present all of the good information they need to know to successfully accomplish whatever they need to right then and there. Don't make it hard, don't make people hunt for information. And it's just there are so many things when it comes to it. And in my other video, instead of talking about the whole domain of shapes, I talked about lines, from straight lines to sharp lines to curved lines to, or like C curves or S curves or variation. And I talked about how those emotions go through. And I also talked about ellipses, which are like, you have partial ellipses, and you also have full ellipses, which would probably be better off in like as a shape of some sort. But the point I'm trying to say here is that every line you draw, I think, requires more strain on the human to process. So if you have like a composition that has a ton of lines and a ton of stuff on it, I think more often than not, looking at a glance, people will view it at a glance, and people will view it up close. So like certain things pull attention. Like I think a sharp curve, that doesn't really, that it could be even a bit painful to view it because it's sharp. You could think of it maybe like a rose, whatever you call this thing, or you could also think of it in terms of maybe softer things, like if you have like a square, or if you have like a flat edge, something like that. It could be a lot different. Um, that's what I think when it comes to it. They all have these human elements to them, and the way you process it, like I'll put it this way: if you're looking at a line, it's a lot easier to process than if you have like a bunch of lines, because perhaps it could cluster into its own thing, but I think for the most part, it's going to cause like a certain emotional, it's going to cause a lot more processing from the viewer to understand it, take it in at a glance. And I'm not saying you have to always do stuff in a more simpler way than doing any type of cluster, but I think it's important to know that the more stuff you have, the more it's going to cause a scene. I think it can be done in an order. The other thing I kind of did a bad job explaining was how like this, they're all kind of like faced the same way, and I think perhaps that could be processed by a person in an easier way than if you had like a cluster like this. Like I think if you have like a whole cluster of things, perhaps even overlapping and kind of like in a bit disorder, it's gonna really lack in the harmony scale. Or maybe I'm wrong, but if you think of like a firework in which it's something like that, not exactly. I think we're okay processing that because it seems like there's some order, but with this cluster, it's like there's no order. It's like a stack of needles, compared. But I guess it can work in like perhaps if you have like a haystack or something like that. But a lot of this just varies so much, and it's really got me thinking about how we as people process lines. And I think I'm just gonna have to do more research into like how people did compositions and how people use line quality to do stuff. Personally, I'm not too big of a fan of impressionism, which I feel like more often than not just focuses on, well, kind of justice. They try to evoke a feeling with either lines or mixed media or paint, and rather instead of like trying to focus on some real life thing that you may see. So I think perhaps that a lot of people don't understand it when they look at it, and perhaps I haven't always been the biggest fan of it, because I guess what they're playing with is extremely simple elements, but they kind of understand how to play it along with it, or play with it themselves to get it to work. And perhaps there's some more information that I need to really truly understand it. But yeah, I think all of these can make a lot of sense. Like I think of insects a lot. Like if you have a swarm of hornets, something like that, it's going to cause like a bit of stress on my part compared to perhaps an order of like ants of some type. My horrible ants. But I think order is like one of those things that also falls in a line. Whether there is an order, does it cause comfort or does it cause distress? But yeah, there's a lot more that I'll have to know, and I'm kind of looking forward to touching this topic in the future once I know more, but I don't know everything I need to at this exact time. But yeah, thank you for listening. If you have a question, please ask in the comments. If you have your own point on it. If you like the video, please like it, and if you have a question, well, I already said that. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope this video just gets you thinking. Bye.